am I? Hi, if you think the hat is above sending his human familiar on an extraplanar journey for his 100th video 500k subscriber celebration, you don't know the hat at all. Since it was created, Eberron has been the alternative to the norm. If Greyhawk and the Forgotten Realms are Tolkien-esque fantasy, the forces of good versus the forces of evil, Eberron is not that. Eberron is magic-powered railroads, airships flying over skyscrapers, sentient automatons walking amongst elves and goblins. It's a gnome detective looking at the corpse of a robot in a dark and grimy industrial city street. It's divinely ordained noble houses fighting amongst each other with subterfuge and eugenics. Eberron is different. I want this video to be your one-stop primer for Eberron. For newcomers, think about this as a comprehensive introduction. For oldies and veterans, think about this as a refresher. And for everyone, think about this as inspiration, because I want you to play in Eberron. We're going deep this time. I'm gonna tell you how Eberron was created both in and out of fiction. We'll visit its nations, we'll meet its people, and then we'll take a look at its most emblematic feature, the Artificer. The newest iteration of the Artificer present in the newest Eberron book, along with every playable option if you want to make an Eberron character. But that is not all. This is Pointy Hat, and the 100th video 500k subscriber celebration would not be complete without something to take home for 100% certified Pointy Hat free. We have company. You guys are ready? Say hi. So get ready for this shot on location, very special episode of D&D with a twist, Eberron edition. Let's get it started. Part 1, Eberron Origins, Chronicles of the Revelations, Memories, Exandria Unlimited Calamity, and Knuckles. At the tail end of 3rd edition and just before The Lion King 3.5 edition, Wizards of the Coast set out on a quest to create a brand new setting for Dungeons & Dragons, and they did so with a competition. This sort of high fantasy X Factor asked designers to submit a one-page document detailing one possible setting for D&D. As Benjamin Burns writes for Dicebreaker, Bill Slavicsek, at the time the head of R&D for Wizards, R&D means Research and Dragons, believed that D&D now needed something less crunchy. At the time, D&D had about 100,000 settings, and they were all extremely mechanically heavy, very combat focused, and just not particularly deep in terms of themes or narrative. And yet, 3rd edition was very much moving in exactly that direction. And so, many of those older settings were put on the back burner, and Greyhawk was chosen as the main 3rd edition setting. Sound familiar? That is exactly what they're doing with 2024. And guess what is the first setting that they're releasing after 2024? But back in the day, after choosing Greyhawk, they needed a new one. They needed a new setting built with that 3rd edition narrative focus in mind. More about plot hooks, themes, skills, exploration, and character development. And so, to make this new theme a reality, the Wizard of the Coast came up with a devious scheme. A paid contest. Wealth, fame, power. These words lured men to Seattle, in pursuit of dreams greater than they had ever dared to imagine. This is the time known as August 2002. More than 11,000 designers answered the call. 11 were selected as semi-finalists, 3 as finalists, each of them getting 20k, that is 2002's 20k. And finally, American-Michiganese designer Keith Baker got 100k for his one-page document and to detail that one-page document. The entry in question? Albert Einstein. So Eberron, in a way, was born of a community effort, and the seeds planted on that one-page document would grow into what Eberron is today. First, in 3.5, with a massive 15 books and supplements, holy mother of bloat, and not counting collector's editions. Then 4th edition with a demure 2, and 5e with first the non-truly canonical Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron, then the first true entry into Eberron in 5e, Rising from the Last War, and finally its latest with Forge of the Artificer. But these are only the official ones. Eberron has canon, but it also has canon with a K, like a Kardashian. Keith Baker, the man behind the original concept of Eberron, has worked in all official Eberron 5e books, including Rising from the Last War and Forge of the Artificer. But he's also created his own supplements for Eberron, including 3 main books, and the last one is with 2024 rules. The distinction between Kardashian canon and normal canon are sometimes minutiae and sometimes pretty big divergences, and this all contributes into making Eberron a frankly, terrifyingly deep setting. I found a collector's guide made by Eberron fans to categorize everything, and oh god. This only goes to May 2013. It's not even complete. So, good thing I'm here. in Eberron to make an introduction. You now know how Eberron happened, but what is it? Part 2. What is an Eberron? A question for the philosophers. Okay, we're gonna get into player stuff soon enough, but I think that knowing what is in the world actually does help you come out with a character that lives in it. Like, this is not just for DMs. So let's get into the overview so we can get into weird specifics later. I'm gonna go through this lightning fast though, so hold on tight, spider monkeys. Eberron's origin story is... it's something. There were originally 3 dragons. My favorite, they were called the progenitor dragons since they came before the Big Bang, and they were the ones to create the universe as we know it. The 3 dragons were called Cyre, Cerberus, and Eberron. Oh my god, he said the title of the movie. Cyre is the dragon below, Eberron is the dragon between, and Cerberus is the dragon above. It's like a draconic sandwich. But why? Well, according to one version of the creation myth, yes, there are several. Once again, Kardashian canon very much in effect. According to one version, Cyre and Cerberus disagreed on the interior decor of the universe they were creating, and this interior design dispute culminated on Cyre doing a little bit of a murder on Cerberus. Eberron stepped in quickly, but also quickly recognized that she couldn't take Cyre on her own, so she instead used her body to trap him below her. Don't make it weird. All the while, Cerberus's corpse just floated above them, and that's how they ended in the sandwich formation of creation. Cerberus is now an asteroid ring all around Eberron. Eberron is the material plane, like the normal land that we walk on, that I'm walking on now. Looks great. And Cyberus is, hell, the Underdark? The elemental chaos? It's something. It's underground. It's unclear. It's the bad place. As I said, I found like 4.5 versions of this story, especially because it changed between 3rd edition and 4th edition. Eberron having 2 canons does not help. But what I like about it is that it does mirror actual real life mythology. Like, mythology has several versions of the same tale. Anyway, one of these origin myths mentioned a prophecy. It was a prophecy that started the fighting. A draconic prophecy, if you will. That's important. That's very important. So let's put a pin on that. A big, large, complicated to explain pin. Anyway, Eberron is the land and the dragon and the IP. That's not confusing. For now, if I say Eberron, I'm talking about the land. And that land has 7 continents. So let us explore in detail each of them. Just kidding. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna talk about Khorvaire. And this is not out of laziness. Does this look lazy to you? No. We're talking about Khorvaire because Eberron is Khorvaire. The conflict of the world, the bulk of the lore, the lion's share of world building, all of it is in Khorvaire. It's like how Dragon Age has other continents, but Thedas is Dragon Age. I have a superpower called I will talk about Dragon Age regardless of the topic. So, what is a Khorvaire? Khorvaire is basically a Pokemon region. It's a continent with every single biome you can think of, so you can like unleash your players as if the continent itself was a rage room. You have your deserts, you have your cities, you have your plains, you have your forests, you have your swamps, you have your lands blasted by the evils of man and war, just like Pokemon. There are 5 nations in Khorvaire. Well, there are more than 5 nations in Khorvaire. There are like 13, 16. Previously, these were not 5 nations, they were 5 regions because they were all united under one kingdom, the Kingdom of Galifar, which, if I don't say Gallifrey this whole video, I deserve a raise. From 0 to something. It was called Galifar after its king, like the king that founded it, and each of his kids ruled one of the nations. And this setup kinda worked throughout the centuries. Galifar, like all backstory kingdoms, was perfect and beautiful and amazing, and we're gonna talk about this later. And it enjoyed 9 centuries of relative prosperity and peace until it didn't. Galifar is no more. Instead, as I said, there are 5 independent nations. These are called the 5 human nations. As I said, there are more, but these are the 5 human nations. And they are the ones with the most history and the most influence out of everything in Khorvaire. So, let's meet the neighbors. And yes, I did write myself in a numbered list within a numbered list. Again, number A, Aundair. A for Aundair. We have fun here. This will make sense in a second. By the way, I'm using Keith Baker's pronunciation guide for all of these, so take it up with him if you don't like it. He did say there's no canon pronunciation though, or canon with a K pronunciation, so tomato, tomato, Sigil. Aundair is the magic nation of Eberron, but it's also the farming nation of Eberron. Plan combo. Also, I told you it would make sense. Now that I think about it, this is also the case in A Song of Ice and Fire. Like, the Reach has Old Town. I have the same disease with A Song of Ice and Fire as I do with Dragon Age. I'm quieter about it because I'm pretending that I don't care, so the books will come out faster. Aundair has a pleasant summer and a short winter. Every time I read stuff like this in world building, I feel like I'm reading like a travel guide, and here I am doing exactly that. Anyway, this makes Aundair good at farming. In a pre-industrialization place like the Forgotten Realms, this would make Aundair the richest nation by a mile. This has always been the case in feudalism. Like, the breadbasket regions were always the richest. Look at the Reach. But Eberron has 1800s levels of technology, which is sick and so cool and so different from everything else in D&D. But this also means that maybe Aundair is experiencing this massive exodus of its rural population towards the cities, and it's well on its way to becoming Corvair's Dust Bowl. Hold on, that's a sick adventure idea. Let me write that. Good thing that Aundair not only does farming, but also magic. And it does that in a floating city. Listen, Eberron is very unique and very inventive, but it's not always unique and inventive. Sometimes the magic city floats, and yes, we have seen that once or twice. Aundair's magical city of magically learning magic is called Arcanix.
Totally unique, completely not ever been done before.
It's Hogwarts. It's Hogwarts, the city. It's Academy City from that one anime. It's the city that is also a university. Several universities, which is cooler. I guess it's Oxford. Real talk, I love this to hell and back. You will not hear me complain that this has been done before. I love university cities, more of them. If they are university city, they get to float. It's fine. Aundair is technically a monarchy, but functionally it is not. It's governed by a pretty diverse council comprised of like people that work in the university and people that lead the Knights Arcane. The Knights Arcane are Aundair's main military force. They were deployed during the last war, and their whole thing is that they're a light cavalry unit. They're on top of horses that fight, specializing on combat with wands. If you think that's not cool, click off the video. I'm not gonna wow you with anything else. I'm sorry. Unsubscribe. And since Aundair is magic and homic, what about something that is exactly that in reverse? Number B, Breyland. This one gets the detective jacket because it's the city one. B for Breyland. We're on a roll. If Aundair is cottagecore, tradwife, homesteading, light macadamia country, Breyland is, well, it's not that. Breyland is a nation of industry in Corvair. Less rolling fields and more grimy, greasy factories, but also invention, industry, innovation, progress. Breyland is, to me, very America-coded. Breylanders love independence, industry, individuality, other things starting with I, and they're also generally awful at working as a group and taking collective action. If you ask yourself which one of the 5 human nations of Corvair is the most powerful, there really isn't one answer. It's all very subjective. There's different measuring sticks to measure each of them from, so there's not like you can come up with what is Breyland. Breyland is the most powerful nation, and all other nations fear it, and for good reason. And that good reason is Sharn. Sharn is the largest city in Corvair. Sharn is the largest city in Eberron. Sharn is so large at this point that it could basically count for its own nation. Remember when I said that Breyland was the industrial nation of Corvair? Oh boy, did they pick the right horse, because industrialization goes brrr in Corvair. Sharn, and therefore Breyland, is not only the hub of the Lightning Rail, which is a network of trains that connects all of Corvair and that all other nations rely on. No, Breyland is also where all inventions that all other nations rely on come from. Sharn is the first and so far the only metropolis in the setting, if you don't count the Goblin one. Fine, put a pin in it, we'll put a pin on that, we'll come back to that. Nevertheless, the presence of Sharn and Eberron changes everything. As I said, Eberron is said to have 1800s levels of technology. Do you know what that means? In our setting of the real world, where we touch grass, we place the beginning of the Industrial Revolution at 1760. Eberron is right in the middle of it, and Breyland is supposed to take over the world thanks to getting there early. This is why Eberron is so cool to me. As a person that likes history a normal amount, with other settings, with more fantastical feudalistic settings, you can take inspiration from history, sure, but with Eberron, you can take inspiration from history that no other setting can take inspiration from. It's sick. What I'm saying is, Breyland is America if America was 19th century Britain. Cool, and also terrifying, but if Breyland is America, what is its enemies to lovers counterpart?
Except hold on, what's that? No, not this whole thing. The music, do you hear it? Oh, wait, sorry. I left my pocket bard on. How embarrassing. Oh, Pocket Bard? It's this Eberron thing. Just a tiny construct bard. Probably a Warforged, honestly. You just keep it around to soundtrack your life. Those house Karrnath people really know what they're doing. And you can have a Pocket Bard too, for free. That's right, whatever Dragonmarked house is in charge of phones has made Pocket Bard an actual free-to-download app specifically made for all your tabletop music needs. Okay, I've talked about this on this channel before, but D&D without music is straight up torture to me. I've literally sneaked an earbud in and played my own music in sessions without it because the experience is so much worse, and Pocket Bard gets that. The thing about music in D&D is that it instantly elevates your game, but it can also be a huge hassle. Pocket Bard makes it just impossibly easy. You select a location, like a tavern, a forest, a graveyard, whatever, and just seamlessly transition from exploration to combat to even victory in that location with one click. You even get to adjust the intensity of every song for stuff like chase scenes or final blows. But that's not all. Yes, there's more. You also get ambiances, like general noise of that location to turn off and on, or to have it play exclusively if music is not your thing, but sound definitely is, and it should be. And you also get SFX. Need some maniacal laughter thrown in the mix and want to scare your players to death by having it come out of the speakers behind them? You can do that with Pocket Bard. And you've been listening to Pocket Bard's sumptuous offerings as I've been talking. Pretty good, huh? And I wasn't kidding. It's free. And the free options are very chunky. Like, don't tell them, but you can run a whole campaign with the free stuff. All those examples of locations I gave, those are some of their free options. There's also stuff that everyone needs, like city, town, cave, but even super specific stuff like dark streets, villages as opposed to towns, haunted swamps for hags. All of that is free. There's 17 free options, and each of them get like a combat, an exploration, and a victory, and different levels of intensity. So try Pocket Bard out for free, unlimited, see if you like it, and then see if the paid options make sense for you. They have whole worlds of music, like horror, seafaring tunes, sci-fi, feywild, a whole feywild world of music? Okay, that does sound amazing. So if all of that sounds good, go download Pocket Bard for free in every app store you can think of. Yes, Android included, not just Apple. That's Pocket Bard, 2 words. And it's also the very first link in the description of this very video for you desktop feeds. And now, where were we? Oh, yeah, the spooky ones.
Number C, Karrnath. Karrnath doesn't start with a C. Moving on to the middle-aged goth uncle of the bunch. Forgive the Harry Potter reference, but Karrnath is sort of the Slytherin of Eberron. Like, I don't want to say that Karrnath is evil, because that would be boring and reductionist and bad. But you know, it's not that. Karrnath loves 2 things, military and undead. And Karrnath loves it when those 2 go together, which doesn't sound like a good time for anyone else. But they love it. Everyone in Karrnath has to do mandatory military service, much like BTS. This happens twice. Once when you come of age, and the next one when you're dead, much like BTS. Necromancy is just not looked down upon in Karrnath. It's just another part of life, or death. Most people are really down to join the Tumblr skeleton war over there, and so Karrnath has an extremely sizable military that just doesn't need to eat or sleep, which is a thing that Karrnath has been struggling to do for a minute. Much like BTS. The nation is so dedicated to its goth aesthetic that it just sucks to be there. Being so up north means that they cannot farm to save their life, or unlife, which means that they often need to import basically everything from Aundair, which in turn would put them in the worst position out of all the nations if the last war turned out to be not the last war. Real talk here, Karrnath's economy is dunzo completely. Their main export is paper. It's bad. It's dire over there. Somebody help them. If Breyland is the America of Eberron, Karrnath is very much the Russia circa World War I. Famine and plagues included. I'm not gonna get into religions of Eberron too much, not even in the nation coming after this, but I wanna make a point to say that Karrnath has its own. It used to be the state's religion until a vampire lady said stop it. We're not gonna get into that. The religion in question is called the Blood of Vol. Side note, I only heard this the first time I came across this. I didn't see it written, so for years I thought it was Vol, V-O-L-E, with an E at the end, like the cute little rat. Imagine my disappointment when I found out it was not the case. Anyway, much like basically every religion in Eberron, which makes them really cool, is that the Blood of Vol is not evil and it isn't good. It's an entity. You would think that it's evil because it comes from the place of bad, and it has blood in the name, and its logo is this. But no, the Blood of Vol is neutral. It would be best described as fedora tipping the religion. It has more in common with our conception of atheism, really. They believe that everything that all religions say is a lie, that religion is the opium of the people. If gods are real, they don't care about us and we shouldn't care about them. There is no life after death. The only time that counts is now, so protect your life, be happy, and make the ones that you love happy, because there's nothing after this.
based a little bit.
What? They ate a little bit with that. Just a little. Come on. Anyway, let's talk about the exact opposite of that. Number D, Thrane. D for Thrane? Blasphemy. I don't know what it is about me. I just love that theocracy. The vibes are rotted in like a very appealing way to me. Maybe it's the Handmaid's Tale of it all. I feel about theocracies like the way some people feel about Venn diagrams. Thrane follows the religion of the Silver Flame. As I said, I'm not gonna get into religion too much, but it's impossible to talk about Thrane without talking about the Silver Flame. Thrane is definitely the place in Eberron to go to if you want to exercise your religious trauma. Or embrace it. I'm not here to judge. In a move I've pulled in my own world building a whole lot, Thrane studies divine magic, not arcane magic. We have seen arcane as like the focus of study about 100,000 million times, I would say. But D&D has 3 sources of magic. Why is arcane the only one studied ever? It makes a ton of sense for me for a country or a society to focus on another one, especially the one that can heal. The Church of the Silver Flame rules Thrane. Literally, like there's no distinction between church and state. The Silver Flame is okay, I'm just gonna say it, it's Christianity, and it's Catholicism specifically. They literally have cardinals. They have a pope. They have a child pope, which is a thing that happened in the real world. Well, he was 20, but if you know anything about popes, that was a baby. Thrane is just the Vatican, but with magic. All of this combined with the Church of the Silver Flame preaching austerity and charity and exorcising demons makes the Silver Flame just fantasy Catholicism. It all has a very nomine vibe to it. Other stupider fantasy worlds would take this setup and make Thrane just a nation of crazy zealots itching at the chance of jumping someone with a fedora. And Thrane is just not that. Thrane is tolerant of other faiths even within its borders. Their own version of Jesus, a paladin lady named Tira, who defeated the demons by becoming the Silver Flame through the act of burning alive. Once again, very Jesus. This lady was a follower of a different religion. She had to be, on account of the Silver Flame not being a thing yet, since she hadn't burned to death. But here's the kicker. In a move that I frankly find genius, the other people of Eberron believe that the people of Thrane are jealous zealots that are crazy and religion obsessed. And the reason for that is propaganda. Thrane is, weirdly enough, a kind of progressive nation in some ways. Chief amongst them, they're not a monarchy. Thrane is the only one of the 5 nations that isn't a monarchy. The church rules Thrane, which means there's no king, which means that other kings of other nations do not like the idea of their own citizens getting some creative ideas as to what to do back home if they find out that you cannot have a king and be okay. This has led to other nations not only ignoring Thrane in international relationships, which has made a number on Thrane, we'll get to that, but also to spread propaganda about how Thranes are just a nation of zealots and how unlucky they are and how poor they are and how awful Thrane, the nation, treats its own citizens. It's propaganda. Thrane is the most isolated nation out of the 5 human nations. It literally says that during the last war, it had the hardest time making any alliances. Even now, centuries later, there are still people in Thrane that want to bring back the monarchy, especially now with a child pope. And like, imagine Breyland that lost some land to Thrane in the war, and especially Aundair, which lost its own old capital to Thrane in the war. Imagine these two starting plots to destabilize Thrane by funding these monarchists. That's such a sick plot. Like, come on, if you're into political intrigue, tell me you don't want to play that. During the last war, Thrane had some pretty huge wins. As I said, they took Aundair's capital, but it also had some massive losses. And because no one will trade with it, Thrane right now is very poor and taxing its citizens a lot, which makes it the perfect candidate for destabilization. I'm still not over that plot. But I've said 5 nations, and guess what? I'm about to break Pointy Hat tradition and our most sacred covenant, alphabetical order. Number E, Cyre. Should have been number F for Cyre, to pay respects. Once again, following Keith's pronunciation guide, he said Cyre. Sorry if your phone started talking. If I had followed alphabetical order, Cyre would be number C, so you know I have a pretty good reason not to. And that reason is, it kinda doesn't exist anymore. Cyre was the soft power of Eberron. Art, music, jewelry, philosophy, magic, engineering. Cyre had everything. They were all about Cyren appreciation. A literal cultural practice of stopping and smelling the roses, appreciating art, and just generally vibing. It was like hippies, but with money. So like hippies. These roads of flames. I guess it's just historically accurate. Cyre was the most beautiful, the most powerful, and the richest of the 5 nations of Corvair. They called it Beautiful Cyre, Wondrous Cyre. It was literally called the place where arcane dreams were manifest, a literal land of dreams. It was also at the forefront of arcane engineering and innovation. It wasn't just art. Even the people of Cyre were said to be beautiful. They were supposed to have wavy black hair. Sound familiar?
and also to be lithe and beautiful. Doesn't ring a bell. Cyre was a dream. It was the Regina George of nations. It was the best of Khorvaire, the best of humanity. And then it died. The Queen Mashan of Cyre should have been, by all rights, the next ruler of Galifar, the kingdom that encompassed all of Khorvaire, including the 5 nations. But as we know, that didn't happen. When it was time for Queen Mashar to take up the throne of Galifar and rule over all of Khorvaire, all of her siblings said, "What about me? What about Jujubee?" And so, the last war started. This is all very War of the Roses, very Matilda versus Stephen in The Anarchy, or very War of 5 Kings or House of the Dragon, if you also have A Song of Ice and Fire disease, just like me. The last war was between Queen Mashan, the ruler of Cyre, and the only sibling that supported her, which was the King of Aundair, and literally every other nation in Eberron. Let's take a look at the Khorvaire map really quick. It appears that Cyre is at the dead center of the continent, surrounded by other nations, and with its only ally very, very far away. Wonder how this will play out. Cyre had a whole time of it. It immediately had to resort to mercenaries, which didn't go great, but Cyre had an ace on its sleeve. Golems, which later became Warforged. Yes, that's right, that's where they come from. This is when the robots come in, everybody, get excited. Warforged joined the ranks of Cyre, and this is mostly how Cyre managed to endure most of the last war. And this worked so great that they kept just 3D printing a whole bunch of Warforged. Bigger and better every time. I bet that decision will have no consequences in the future. One day, as Karrnath was in active conflict in the Cyren northern border, as it was trying to invade it to go to Breyland and invade it in turn, and 5,000 other things were happening at once, the entire nation of Cyre was not decimated, but outright destroyed in a magical blast. Not one city, not one region, but the entire nation was destroyed. Over 1 million Cyrens died, the vast majority of the population, which at the time numbered at around 1,500,000 people. This was called the Day of Mourning. Only those that lived next to the frontiers between Cyre and other regions survived, and they tried to flee. Aundair, Cyre's only ally during the war, turned those refugees away, fearful that bringing Cyrens in will cause another explosion in Aundair. The elves to the south that had been contracted by Cyre as mercenaries not only turned the refugees away, no, they slaughtered them as they were fleeing into what they now call their lands. The goblins of Dargoon did the same. When both the elves and the goblins were questioned as to why they did this, both groups stated that they did so because the refugees fleeing for their lives were invading their lands. Nobody knows what caused the Day of Mourning. This isn't me keeping the secret so you may one day play Eberron. Nobody knows. You will not find a book that tells you. Because the point of Eberron is that we do not know. We don't know which nation was behind it. We don't know if any nation was behind it. We don't know if it was an attack. We don't know if it was an accident. The Day of Mourning is a mystery to everyone. But we do know what happened after. Cyre is now gone. And where it once stood, now stand the Mournlands, a magically irradiated wasteland filled with a mist that arose after the blast. This mist destroys and mutates anyone it comes in contact with. It is now a region and a land in name only, completely devoid of life. Or is it? Put a pin on that. The Day of Mourning put an end to not just Cyre, but the war. It also ended Galifar as a whole. The Treaty of Thronehold established the new order of Khorvaire. There will now not be one kingdom, but 5 independent nations. The Mournlands being one of them only in name. That's the Eberron you find when your story in it starts. Alright, I've talked enough about nations for me to stop burying the lead. And some of you might have seen where this is going already. Cyre, beautiful Cyre, wondrous Cyre, purple jewel of Galifar's crown. Galifar, the lost kingdom, the all-encompassing nation of Khorvaire. These two are utopian, perfect, ideal, and most importantly, impossible. Both Cyre and Galifar feel unrealistic in their perfection because they don't exist anymore. They are lost forever. Eberron is a land scarred by war. Sure, many are, but Eberron is a land that still bleeds for what was lost, for what could have been. Eberron grieves the death of possibility. Both Cyre and Galifar need to sound like Tolkienesque bliss for the themes of Eberron to work. Massive loss, the horrors of war, sure, but also rebuilding, advancing, evolving, and moving on from grief. Galifar and Cyre are perfect because they're a memory. They are nostalgia. It's how people that mourn their dead want to remember them. They want to remember them as perfect because they're no longer there to prove them wrong. The first 5e book set in Eberron is literally called Rising from the Last War. Rising. Cyre is called the Mournlands. Eberron is a setting that asks you to mourn what once was, sure, but then it asks you to rebuild, to move on from grief. to grow. It wants you to stop looking at the idyllic past and move towards the future, whatever it may be. Karrnath holding on to their dead even after death. Sharn being built on a skeleton of an even older version of itself. Aundair constantly obsessing over the capital it once lost. Thrane plotting to bring back the monarchy it once brought down itself. Every nation of Eberron is as obsessed with its past as it is worried about its future. That's beautiful. That's theming. That's why I wanted this to be the 500k 100th video special. This level of thematic cohesion is rare. It's very rare in fantasy in general. Eberron is not just good D&D, it's good fantasy, period. And I think that needs to be celebrated. Okay, that was very serious. Back to jokes now. We want to celebrate Eberron, but to celebrate Eberron is to play it, to live it. We've looked at the setting long enough. What can you actually play in Eberron? I mean you, as a player, who lives in Khorvaire? And as a DM, what NPCs can you populate your world with? Let's go. Part 3, the people of Eberron. In the first ever Eberron book, there's a little section called Things You Need to Know at the very beginning of the book. The first point reads, if it exists in D&D, it has a place in Eberron. It's Smash Bros rules. Everyone is here. But they're a little bit different. They have been given a twist, if you will. I got jokes. And nothing exemplifies this more than taking a closer look at the staple species in D&D and their roles in Eberron, because they're all a little bit different to a lot of bit different. Orcs, elves, dwarves, gnomes, goblins, all of them are here, but they're all different. So, before we meet the Eberron natives, let's take a closer look at the devil we know. Oh god, I've already done the letter thing and the number thing. Number red, elves. In the world of Eberron, long ago, giants kept a whole bunch of elves as interns. Yes, indeed, Eberron is not safe from internship. Those elves then rebelled, as interns are prone to do, and this started the Elven Uprising. But those giants sure did fight back. Drow were actually used by the giants to hunt other elves. That's how Drow fit into the mess of Eberron. All this culminated with the elves fleeing their continent as the giants decided, what if I nuke that continent? To which the dragons replied, what if you don't? Nowadays, there are many distinct elven cultures. It's one of the least monolithic species in Eberron, which, sure, realistic, but also confusing and hard to explain, which is rude to me. Most elves in Eberron practice ancestor worship, except for Drow, because it's always, regardless of the setting, except for Drow. In Khorvaire, most elves have adapted to human culture. The exception to that is the elves of Valinor. Those guys are extremely militaristic. The best way I've found to describe them is elf Mongol. Remember that quaint little detail of Cyre employing a bunch of elf mercenaries, and those same elf mercenaries turning against the fleeing Sirens during the day of mourning? Those are Valinor elves. They're assholes. Charming bunch. Okay, let's bring it down, literally. Number orange, dwarfs. I'm a dwarf now. Perfect framing. Honestly, dwarves are the ones that have changed the least in Eberron. They're slightly more Viking-y, but Viking-y is not a new flavor of dwarf. And I would know. I love dwarves. They're also not from Khorvaire originally. They're from, I'm gonna say, the North Pole. They did move, however, into Khorvaire and settled into, I'm gonna say, Switzerland, and that would be accurate because that is the biggest difference between vanilla dwarves and Eberron dwarves. Dwarves' natural propensity to love playing Minecraft has led them to be extremely capitalistic in Eberron, like rich to a concerning degree. Keith Baker, the creator of Eberron, compared them to oil barons. Dwarves are rolling in it, and as I said, they have very much taken to this role, becoming the most hardcore capitalists of Eberron. In the Forgotten Realms and vanilla D&D, there's this sense of like community, there's this sense of collectivism to dwarven culture. That is not the case in Eberron. Dwarves in Eberron are bankers. Can you think of something less collectivist than banking? It really fits into the whole setting of noir intrigue. I think it's a really solid lever to pull, and I feel like people forget about dwarves in Eberron consistently, so I'm here to make you not forget. Okay, from one that has changed not much to one that has changed the most. Number yellow, gnomes. Gnomes are completely different in Eberron, down to like their creature type. Remember my gnome video where I talked about gnomes being like fey-like fey-inspired, but actually having nothing to do with the feywild? At least in 5e, this has changed 1,000 times. Like, they don't even have fey ancestry. They're connected to dwarves more than fey. In Eberron, they are. Not from dwarves. They are literally from the feywild. Eberron's version of the feywild. You get it. This means that, yes, this is the third species in a row that is not from Corvair. Interesting. I wonder which one is. You're not gonna guess. Anyway, this isn't why they're interesting here. They're interesting in Eberron because they are assholes. Gnomes are the worst in this setting. I feel like if you know Eberron at all, you agree. And they're also probably my favorite species to play in Eberron. Basically, upon arriving to Corvair, they immediately and correctively assessed that they were the smallest and weakest of the species, and therefore set out to gather as much information as gnomishly possible to leverage it against every other faction in the continent. Basically, they established their own country, Zalargo, and their own secret police. Sick! That's right, I wasn't kidding about the information part. This secret police is called the Trust, and they are everywhere, in every single corner of Eberron. Nobody, not even gnomes, knows who's part of the Trust and who isn't. And therefore, nobody can trust a gnome, not even other gnomes. This means that 1, gnomes are constantly gathering intel, which is great for the Trust and great for Zalargo and the gnomes in general, but also, gnomes are keeping each other in check. Their whole nation is built on subterfuge, espionage, and assassination. They have never lost. Gnomes are terrifying in Eberron. See, that's why it's fun. That's what's fun about the setting. It takes the bits that we know about gnomes, they're tricksy, they're illusionists, and it gives it a twist, which we are fans of on this channel. Let's keep going with the weirdos. Number green, goblins. Oh, look at that. Green for goblin. It really is the little things. I can finally take the goblin pin I put up years ago. Imagine I'm doing that. Peek. You know the tried and true fantasy trope of the ancient elven empire? The whole was once great and powerful and world-encompassing, and now it's lost, and its ruins hold treasures untold. Yeah, that's goblins in Eberron. Remember all the species we've been talking about and how none of them are from Corvair, including humans? You know who was? Goblins. And not only that, but goblins, goblinoids in general, led the largest empire in all of Corvair. And then aliens attacked. I'm not kidding. Okay, it was aberrations, but it's more fun to say that way. It's just more whimsical to say that the ancient goblin empire fell to an alien invasion, because it kinda did. Sharn, the largest city in Corvair, is built on top of an even older, even grander city, and that city was built by goblins. Goblins now are still kicking and still pretty organized, but goblin civilization is a shadow of what it once was. It's literally the same as elves from Lord of the Rings. And goblins are tired of all of these adventurers going into their tombs and places of worship and stealing their stuff. I think goblins, and the ones coming right after this, are a great example of how Eberron does species. Eberron just doesn't do inherently evil species. None of them are inherently evil by nature. You know? That thing that apparently is a very contentious topic, and like, if you're a real D&D fan, and if you're an older D&D fan, you believe wholeheartedly that the game used to always be about having inherently evil species. It wasn't. Eberron didn't. Keith Baker said so, and you guys love him. Eberron is one of the most beloved fantasy settings, period, not just D&D, and it doesn't have inherently evil species. What it does is it takes the building blocks of species and it sees how else they could adapt to a different world. So goblins are extremely social, and they structure themselves in very hierarchical tribes, right? It would make sense for that type of culture to maybe develop in this setting as an empire. I mean, Eberron has demons, and those are inherently evil, but it's demons. Sure, all its mortal species, its people, like thinking, feeling people, they're complex. Of course there are evil groups. Oh boy, there are evil groups. The Trust is not good, but no species is born as inherently evil baby. Yes, even the drow. Anyway, we're really killing it with these bizarro world species. Let's keep going. Number cyan, halflings. Halflings ride dinosaurs in Eberron, so they've changed a little bit. When halflings are not just living with humans, they live in the Talenta Plains, and they live in nomadic tribes. You might hear this alongside halfling and think like quaint little caravan. And these tribes number in the thousands and do ride dinosaurs. So less Eberron Trail little caravan and more 1 meter tall Dothraki. Eberron cities in general are more metropolitan than anything in the Forgotten Realms, so most species coexist in them, halflings included, and halflings very much recognize that. Halflings actually funded a chain of interconnected inns that spread all throughout Eberron, and it's because of their Dragonmark. Oh god. just took the goblin pin down. Fine. Put another pin up. We'll get to Dragonmarks. At one point, it's fine. Dragonmarks are connected with the best part of halfling lore in Eberron. The whole being the absolute worst in a way that touches perhaps too close to home to many of you. We'll get to it later. Before we get into that, Eberron has done what it always does. It takes the hospitality aspect of halflings and the caring for others aspect of halflings, and it puts it into the context of Eberron, a world marred with industrialization and war, and sees how that would develop. And I think it's awesome. We'll get to it. Anyway, let's go to our last one. We've talked enough about humans in the previous part. Number blue, orcs. You know all that about no inherently evil species in Eberron? This also applies to the green bean giants. Orcs in Eberron are also native to Corvair. Fancy that. And their whole thing in this setting is an inherent connection to nature. Nature. You know how goblins are basically the high elves of Eberron in terms of history? Orcs would be the equivalent of wood elves, if wood elves were fun. Or maybe furbolgs. Furbolgs might be even better. Orcs were the first druids of Eberron, and they're pretty much the only culture that has managed to settle the Shadow Marches successfully. Go them. The human nations see the Shadow Marches as like a swamp of awful. And don't get me wrong, it is that. It's very much that. But it's also the seat of a developed orcish civilization. Orcs were the ones to actually stop the aforementioned alien invasion of the Shadow Marches. And this whole orcs as the quiet, unsung heroes of Eberron seems to be a trend, because they're doing the exact same thing, but with demons, in the Demon Wastes. And, yep, that's it. That's all the species of Eberron. They're not Eberron originals. That's right. I said comprehensive primer. Eberron has a bunch of original species that are Eberron originals, and some of them are some of my favorites in all of D&D, so of course I was gonna cover them. Who do I think I am? And guess what? I have the newest version of them. Once again, not sponsored. I got this at PAX U. They didn't send it to me. They did send me a watermark PDF, but I like the Metropolis-inspired cover. It's so cool to me. Look at it. Wow. So, let's take a look at how these four, yes, four, not three like before, four species are looking like in 2024 D&D. Number Indigo, Changelings. Changelings must be the most popular Eberron original species, right? They sure feel like it. Since Modern Canon, changelings have been fey, but I believe that's not canon with a K, as in Keith Baker's concept of the changeling is not actual fey. If I have it right, changelings in Kardashian canon are connected to a god called the Traveler. No, not that one. And they're actually like an alternative, convergent evolution, abomination, ascension, genetic offshoot of doppelgangers. There is, once again, 7 versions of this in official D&D Eberron canon with a C, and in the newest book, changelings are fey, which I prefer. I'm going against Kardashian canon. For one, they're literally called changelings. That's a thing, like a real, I mean, mythological thing in the real world. I like when things make sense. The second, I'll talk about this more later, is that this makes it way easier for changelings to be put in other settings, because all settings have like a fey presence. Anyway, the changelings deal is that they can shift into any other playable species. They are the Ditto of D&D. They have to have seen the person they're shifting into. They can't just make up a sim in their head, and they have to stay the same size, and they have to have the same arrangement of limbs. So, no 3 Kreen, I guess. Or Arakokra. Furry phobia. I wonder if this includes Dragonborn now, since they have tails. A tail is a limb. Anyway, a question for the Furry Council. Okay, if this isn't clear, let me spell it out for you. This is an incredible ability. This is amazing. This is probably one of the strongest abilities you could ever get. The amount of options that this gives you in non-combat encounters is wild. I don't think that people realize how strong this is, because it's not a combat ability. The designers clearly do, because changelings get 2 abilities, this and 2 skills, and that's it. They remain virtually the same. There are not really any changes. The changeling has a mistake. They changed it. They changed the changeling. Well, shapeshifted, they have, listen, advantage on charisma checks. Are you kidding? This is whatever the equivalent of min-maxing is for roleplay, the changeling is that. The changeling is broken when it comes to any roleplay encounter. Now that we got the basics, I really want to talk a little bit about lore. There's no mention of this in Rising from the Last War or even in Forge of the Artificer. There's some in here about changeling culture and about sharing personas and passing personas down to your children, which I find fascinating and really cool. But in wider Eberron lore, there were basically like 3 schools of thought as to how changelings should go about their lives. They all stem from the discrimination that that changelings face in the world of Eberron because they're able to turn into someone that you know and that you trust, and that's scary to people. The first one is passers, and passers are all about passing, unclockable Ts. They select one persona that they live as and basically never shift again. They just stay in that persona. They want to pass. They want to be invisible. Becomers, on the other hand, are the opposite. They take advantage of their changeling nature completely, whether for good or for bad or for middle. They're all about shifting and embracing different personas, being different people. They see that as their nature and they want to embrace that. Finally, reality seekers never shapeshift. They show themselves in their anime hair, paper white form forever. They want to be accepted for exactly who they are as changelings. They don't want to have to use a form that other people find more comfortable. They want to be seen in their form originally. Real talk, can you guess why this is very interesting to me? I mean, maybe I'm projecting, but boy does this feel like a very clear allegory for the struggles of certain groups of people, and I think that's really cool. Also, reminder for the audience, allegory is not one-to-one. Just reminding you of that for no reason. Anyway, I really like that. Okay, on to weirder. Number Violet, Kalashtar. Okay, these guys are the hardest ones to explain, so let's get to it. So to understand the Kalashtar, you have to understand Eberron dream lore. Yes, really. In Eberron, there's a plane of existence that people access when they dream. In that plane, there are dream spirits or dream demons, depending on who you ask and how you're feeling. There are people in Eberron that have stronger or weaker connections to that plane. Don't say Dragon Age, don't say Dragon Age, don't say Dragon Age. Now, the Land of Dreams works in cycles, and I'm gonna simplify that by calling it what it should have been called, the Dream Cycle and the Nightmare Cycle. I mean, unless you actually want me to call it the great darkness that dreams. Anyway, in our point of history, we're currently in Nightmare mode. Nice dream spirits that go to bed on time and eat their vegetables do not like Nightmare mode. And Nightmare mode is ending. So the nice dream spirits set to speed up this change and were very quickly challenged by the nightmares. This feels like I'm explaining Kingdom Hearts lore to you. I'm so sorry. Dalcor is the Kingdom Heart. Anyway, the nice dream spirits fled the plane of dreams as they were being chased by evil nightmare spirits and basically became dream refugees in the material plane. That's when some nice monks from the material realm took them in. And by took them in, I do mean into themselves. No, not like that, but into their own bodies. They basically agreed to roommate their body.
And they were roommates.
And so the Kalashtar, people that have their own moral spirit and a dream spirit inhabiting their one body, were born. Now onto science. When a Kalashtar and a normal person love each other very much, the stork brings them a baby. But the stork doesn't bring the incorporeal dream spirit fleeing for its life into the material realm. The stork cannot bring that, because storks just suck at doing that. This means that over time, like throughout the generations, the Kalashtar all shared the connection to the original dream spirits that fled, but that connection became diffused, because that same dream spirit was divided among all the children of the subsequent generations. And so, we get the Kalashtar of today. Today, Kalashtar cannot talk to their dream spirits. They can feel them, they can manifest them, they can get psionic powers out of them, they can sort of intuit the intentions of the dream spirit, but they cannot like have a conversation. This isn't possession anymore, their essences have melded completely. I did say psionic powers, so let's look at that. Kalashtar, just like basically every species in 2024, have been buffed in Forge of the Artificer, so how? But you can see cars in the background. The illusion is ruined. Kalashtar now have advantage on wisdom and charisma saving throws, not just wisdom as it was before. Charisma saves are super rare, so not a big buff, but who's gonna complain about advantage? Thematically though, it does make a ton of sense because charisma represents willpower on a character, and Kalashtar have had to grapple with their sense of identity since birth, since they're like, once again, roommates with a dream spirit. They were born possessed. Kalashtar also keep their resistance to psychic, which is a rare damage type, but the things that deal it tend to be pretty strong, so good. Telepathy has also been barely buffed, but like in an interesting way. The restriction on only being able to speak telepathically to something that knows a language has been dropped. So unless I have it wrong, I do believe that you can basically talk telepathically to anything that is a creature. Speak with animals is quaking. Speak with plants? Maybe? Depends on how your DM is feeling. Finally, and I think this is a massive buff, they gain 1 proficiency when they wake up. This is the same as the Gith, because the Gith is another psionic species. It makes sense. And this thing is almost sort of world building if you think about it, as it strengthens strengthens our conception of what psionics are and what having psionics does to a person. Also, neither here nor there, but I love the art. Best art in the book, to be honest. I guess this is the place where I talk about this. Forge of the Artificer has finally decided to not do Magic the Gathering rendered to hell and back art. It almost looks comic booky, but with this beautiful, intricate finish to it. The art is one of my favorites of the official releases. I'm so happy to finally see line art and beautiful draftsmanship in D&D. I was so tired of the rendered look. Thank you. More of this, please. Look at her with her Shinigami from Death Note's dream sibling. What is she doing? Making a magic Kendall? We don't know. Oh, and talking about updates to art, Number Magenta, shifters. Yeah, are you one? She has something to say. Hi. Oh, sorry. Sorry, that was rude of me. They don't look awful anymore. Rejoice. They don't look like whatever that was. They look distinct. They look like their own thing. Thank God. I hated how shifters looked before. Thankfully, there's no 7 paragraphs of lore to explain here. Shifters are the offspring of lycanthropes. In D&D, lycanthropy is the curse of turning into an animal. Yes, I know it doesn't make sense. I know the technical word is therianthrope. I know that. Don't shoot the messenger. I didn't write it. This origin story, alongside the changeling, makes them the easiest species to adapt to non-Eberron settings. Guys, the sun is in my eyes. Can I move? The sun was in my eyes, but you can still see a horsey there. Don't worry, I know what you guys want. Anyway, it's this origin story, just being born of lycanthropes, that makes shifters, alongside with changelings, the easiest species to just put in a different setting. A setting that is an Eberron, I mean. Which is why we probably got shifters in the Mom book and not Kalashtar. I like the Kalashtar way better than shifters, but you really have to do some hard work to adapt. Comes from the willing possession of spirits from the Nightmare realm to a non-Eberron place. Like, that's a hard thing to put in Middle Earth. Very much like the dream spirit of the Kalashtar got diluted through the generations, so did the curse of lycanthropy. Shifters never shift into an actual furry of doom. Rather, they always look kind of animalesque, and they simply enhance those animal traits when they shift. So like, their claws get longer, or whatever. Are there horse shifters? Comment below. Since I don't have to explain 7 pages of lore, let me actually talk about their visual look for a minute. I always thought they looked rough, like from the beginning, especially their 5e incarnation. It felt very non-committal, and I think I understand why. Shifters are not furries, not really. You want these guys to look mostly human, and then be able to shift to make parts of themselves feel more animalistic. So if you started at furry, that transformation would be not obvious at all. In Forge of the Artificer, they changed their look completely, and I really like where they went. It's, once again, very clearly mostly humanoid, but they're going for this sort of Beast from X-Men, Nightcrawler fuzziness to them. I think it's an inspired choice. Are you guys leaving? Oh no, she's coming closer. Oh, I think she agrees. Anyway, I really like this, but I like Beast from X-Men a normal amount, so maybe I'm biased. Abilities-wise now, there are no changes. Not one. Well, not true. You can now be small. So all of you descendants of the evil and duplicitous Were Hummingbird can now cheer. Real talk, my flabber was kind of gasted about this. Like, really? No change? Especially because literally every other species has gotten a buff. But then I remembered Overwatch 2 and changing stuff for the sake of changing stuff. So I guess I'm okay with it. I would have liked maybe one more option. I'm curious though, do you guys like what the new shifters look like? Is it just me? Am I too beast-brained? Am I always in beast mode? I really like their halfway-ness. It almost feels Avatar-y, like James Cameron's Avatar. Is that insane? Like the Na'vi, you know? Comment below. Comment below if you like them or not, or if you want to fight James Cameron in the parking lot. Okay, we're down to the last, but certainly not least, because this one is my favorite. Thank you guys for coming to my video. You were very helpful. Oh god, I really am running out of colors. Number heavy metal and reflective. Warforged. I like these ones a normal amount. When Cyre became the Mournlands and the last war ended, the Warforged that had been made to fight in that war were left without a place in the world. During the Treaty of Thronehold that marked the end of the war, those same Warforged were reticently given the right to be considered people. But hostility towards the Warforged did not end there. Warforged are a walking, talking reminder of one of the most traumatic events in Eberron's history. An event that is still within living memory to a good many citizens of Khorvaire. People died at the hands of Warforged during the war, and their surviving loved ones remember. Additionally, in a continent where industrialization is king, a group of people that need no sleep nor food represent a completely different threat that they represented during the last war. What happens to a people literally called Warforged when there's no more war to be fought? Some Warforged live in the Mournlands, technically their home nation, as they're immune to the mist that covered Cyre after the Day of Mourning. But many others have found a place within the other species of Eberron, and within my heart. I'm not even gonna pretend to be biased. I love robots. I was gonna love the D&D robot. I love robots in fantasy. To me, whether robots belong in fantasy is not even a question. Played Warforged before, and I don't play that much. I like DMing way better. I love them dearly. And I hated their look. I hated the ape-like faces, like the no-nose thing that they had going on. The general visual design was really not for me. I didn't think it was successful. Every single time I've played one, it never looks lore accurate. And I have never been happier. Warforged have changed. They gave them faces. The whole visual design of like the machinery looks beautiful and intricate and sort of like Art Deco meets 1800s inspired. It's beautiful. And to me, they look like a perfect blend between general fantasy and 1800s aesthetics and a dash of Art Deco, which is 20th century. It looks great. They were clearly inspired by Metropolis. I mean, you can fight me on this if you want, but I'm right. But it's not perfect. I really want more variety. Get more art for Warforged. Have some crazier faces in there. Go less humanoid for some of them. It's a robot. Make some of them look like helmets. Make some of them look animal-esque. Make some of them look like dolls. Make them out of porcelain. Maybe that's a model that was used in like someone's home as like a walking music box. I've literally played that. Bring back the old look as an option. Just make one illustration that looks like that and just establish that Warforged can look very different. Just more variety, please. Also, start dressing them. I think that this would make so much sense as a clear distinction between the ones that want to adapt to Corvair society, like in the general world of Eberron, and the ones that don't and like insist on living in the Mournlands where like living, breathing, biological species cannot live. I can't imagine that the ones that want to live amongst the others are walking around butt naked. I know that this might seem like a weird thing to harp on, but like not one Warforged in the entirety of this book is dressed. Like I get that you want to show people the cool machinery thing, and I agree, it looks really cool, but like none of them are wearing pants? I don't know, man. I don't really like how naked they are. Feels weird to me. Give the robots little outfits. Abilities-wise, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid for like the 3 people. I'm one of them, so like the 2 people that care about this. We do not get Warforged subspecies. Yo. At one point, we got on an Earth Arcana with like Envoy, Juggernaut, Skirmisher, and we didn't get that in the final release of Rising of the Last War. So this isn't a change from Rising. I just was really hoping we would go that way. I don't know, it's a robot. Let me customize my robot, right? Like it makes sense for them to be very specifically designed. The changes are minimal, and yet they feel major because the wording between 2014 and 2024 has changed. When I was reading it, I initially thought that they made it so that they needed to eat, which oh no, don't like that. The thematic cohesiveness of like Warforged not needing to eat is important for themes of Eberron. But no, it's still there. It's just worded different. It's worded as you do not gain exhaustion from malnutrition, dehydration, sleep deprivation. So you still don't need to eat, sleep, or drink. It's just worded differently. There is a nerf though. There is one. You can get sick. I think this is silly. How? Explain to me how. Explain to me how the robot is getting sick. Is it the wood inside? Everything else is basically the same from Rising from the Last War. It's extra AC, it's resistance to poison and being poisoned, but not disease. You can go on sleep mode, which is my favorite. There's a tiny bonus change to armor though. It's still a +1. But now, rather than it being a pain to move on, they just made it so it's impossible for it to be removed from you against your will. All in all, I'm being very honest, I remain whelmed. I know it's because I like them so much, so I care more about this one, and in reality I'm complaining about things from Rising from the Last War, not the new book. But since we were gonna update them, I was hoping for some changes for these guys. To me, Warforged should be the most customizable species. I just wish that Warforged had gotten the love that Tieflings got in 2024, but they didn't. The changes that come with Forge of the Artificer are not in the species. Some species do get changes, as we have covered, but that's not where the big changes are. This is more like bringing it to the new language of D&D. So yeah, not much to change. Oh, yeah, they can be small now. Autonome is quaking. And that's it. Those are the 4 native species to Eberron that we got with Rising of the Last War. We can now finally move on to the last part of this hike. They've included a 5th one. One that wasn't in Rising from the Last War. I tricked you once again. Oh god, I've really run out of colors now. Number Ultraviolet, Korovar. Missed them? The most popular species in Baldur's Gate 3. In the top 3 for all D&D species for years on end. The people's princes, princesses, and princex. The one, the only, half-elf. Both half-orcs and half-elves were not included as core species in D&D 2024, which it both made sense and didn't. I was surprised that half-elves didn't make the cut by virtue of how popular they are. And guess what? Here in Eberron, they're here. It makes sense since 2 Dragonmark houses. Well, we put a pin of that before. We'll get to it. We'll get to Dragonmarks. They play a pretty big role in the setting, and so they're here now in 2024 Eberron. In Eberron, half-elves are called Koravar, literally children of Corvair in Elvish. Apparently, they find the term half-elf offensive, which makes a scary amount of sense if you think about it for more than 3 seconds. Compared to gnomes, orcs, and even elves, half-elves don't really change that much in Eberron. But there's a change that I really like. They've always been described as like between 2 cultures, but in the Forgotten Realms, they kind of went the Mary Sue route with this. They are simultaneously described as like impossibly perfect and beautiful and hot, but also oppressed. You will notice, if you know history, that oppressed people, they're not generally considered super hot in the places they're oppressed in. I guess I could see that in like high elven society, since those guys had everything. But like what? You're simply too supermodel for normal people? You're too it girl, you're too skinny legend, you're too Julia? Give me a break. In Eberron, they still have that bridge between 2 cultures, but specifically, in Forge of the Artificer, they say that they have taken the role of a bridge between cultures. Half-elves did not find a place among the elves. They were forced into human nations. And faced with that, they said, we are the children of Corvair. It's not that we don't belong here or there, it's that we're from here. We were created here. We are the product of this new society, and we will be the best at navigating it. In Forge of the Artificer, they are described as like most often performing the roles of bards, but also mediators, diplomats, ambassadors. Let me actually quote from it. They are called to facilitate communication and cooperation between members of different cultures or species. They turn their particular position into their greatest asset. This is probably my favorite iteration of half-elves, but that's true of most of Eberron's iterations of any species, so no surprise. Abilities-wise though, there are some changes. They actually get to keep their sleep resistance, which is a thing that has been taken away from Fey ancestry as like a general ability that many species get, and it has been buffed. Now, you're basically really good at avoiding the unconscious condition, which yes, is what happens when you're put to sleep, but this is a really good buff because there's many other effects that also put you in the unconscious condition. I love how it connects to how half-elves played before, and it's a buff, and it specifically employs 2024 D&D mechanics. They also get you get 2 skills, but rather than getting them from specific legacies from specific elves, they get to switch their skills at the end of a long rest. And they get a brand new ability called Fey Gift, which gives you the Friend's cantrip, or literally any cantrip from the Cleric, Druid, or Wizard spell lists. Really strong. There's this obvious emphasis on versatility that really mirrors their role in Eberron, so it's cool, but I also really like the specificity of choosing your specific elven parent. At the same time, and this is why I get why they did this, it really did make it feel like your elven parent was the important one and the human was an afterthought, which kind of connects with the whole half-elf term. So 1, I get why it isn't there. 2, it is better mechanically to choose a cantrip. Are you kidding? So overall, good changes. Okay. Now, I'm done with species. I'm gonna keep it real. Compared to the 2024 PHB changes to species, these feel really minor. The Kalistar and the Koravar have gone through the biggest changes, and even then, it is nothing compared to what Goliath's got. The meat of the changes in Forge of the Artificer is not on the species. It is clear that what they were doing here is adapting them to 2024 and giving us the Koravar, but I still firmly believe that the big changes are in the player options. Not the species, but in other places. And one of those places is so intricately connected to the setting that there's no way we cannot talk about it in this video. So, how about we finally take one of the pins off our board? Part 4, Dragonmarks. Look at all that. Look what I found in the world of Eberron. Whoever did all that, it must have taken a ton of work and a long time, and burning the edges was particularly scary, and they must have bought work gloves to stomp out the flames at the edges, and it took hours, and sheets don't come in that red color, and it's probably they had to dye it. So that's really cool that they did that. Like and subscribe. I even found a 4th one with House Karrnath that didn't fit there. I bet that's why they didn't put it up. Anyway, so remember the beginning of this video? No, you don't. Who could remember? How long is this gonna be? I'm terrified. Why do I keep doing this to myself? And it's cold here. Anyway, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that one of the reasons why the dragons that created the world of Eberron fought was a prophecy. The details of it are unclear on purpose, but Eberron has a prophecy running through it. It's called the Draconic Prophecy. And rather than understanding it like we understand a prophecy, think about it more as code. A code that dictates the past, the present, and the future of Eberron. For programmers in the audience, it's a lot of if-then statements. If an innocent catches a falling star, then the kingdom of man will fall. If I keep making videos like this, then I will die. Dragons in the world of Eberron study this prophecy, and they're sort of the only ones that can. I guess like anyone that doesn't die also can. The prophecy is just so rich and complex and so many notes of umami that you basically need eternity to study even a very small part of it, especially because more parts of it keep showing up. How? Well, they show up in Dragonmarks. Dragonmarks are tribal tattoos that mark you as the main character of the universe and give you specific powers depending on the specific mark. That's simplifying things. They're actually cyber sigilism. Anyway, sometimes a particular child of a particular bloodline is born with a tramp stamp of power. There are 12 in total, 13, but one of them died. The 13th is the Edgelord one. It died. Well, a lich has it, so I guess, yes, it did die. It's no longer in use. It has been discontinued. This is because 12 and 13 are objectively cool numbers. There's no other explanation. Depending on the specific mark, that person can do specific things. They range from heal the sick, find their way through IKEA, to throw amazing birthday parties, to become a necromantic overlord. Can you guess which one of those is the 13th one? Anyway, Dragonmarks started to appear in the members of the mortal races of Eberron, and having a Dragonmark basically signifies that that person has a specific role to play in the Draconic Prophecy. This could mean that they will literally change the world as we know it, or that they will improve parking in Sharn. The Draconic Prophecy tells the story of all of Eberron, big and small. Anyway, the Dragonmarks have always been associated with a specific species, plural, and more importantly with a specific house. People that manifested one of these marks very quickly understood the power that it held and started to organize in these so-called houses. Why? To control their distribution, of course, because dragon marks are inherited. Nowadays, dragon marked houses are basically nations in terms of levels of power. They control massive swaths of life in Eberron and hunt down anyone that manifests their dragon mark to bring them into the fold of the house so they can control that person like an asset. Let me give you an example. If you are a member of the dragon marked house of healing, you really do not want other houses with which you are basically locked into a state of cold war with to get that same dragon mark. If they do, they will start making babies with that dragon mark, which means that now they will have a piece of your pie. Wars have happened before because of stuff like this. It gets real. Dragon mark houses do not play around. Real talk, this is one of my favorite pieces of Eberron lore. I don't do grimdark. I find it really boring, but this is gritty in a way that really appeals to me. And I think it's just because it feels very real. It feels very grounded in terms of conflict. It's this sort of perfect blend between fantasy and mafia and intrigue that was made for me. They're really cool. And guess what? You can play with a dragon mark. This can be part of your character. So before I tell you how they changed, you need to know what the dragon marks are. I'm gonna give you the Cliff Notes versions of each, and you get to decide which flavor of Mary Sue you would be, which is always fun. Oh God. Another list. I've done numbers, I've done colors, I've done letters. Number I emoji, mark of detection. The I say I DK, but in reality, I do BKing mark. The mark of detection, traditionally associated with half-elves, belongs to House Medandi. It grants the bearer the power of being the mayor of New York. I crack myself up. Anyway, it lets you see things. From poison to magic to literally evil intent. House Medani uses it for their mercantile efforts, like who ascertain the quality of goods. But also, they have a warning guild that is hired for protection, like to detect poisons or threats. This is why we needed half-elves back. The first members to manifest the mark of detection and become House Medani were half-elves. Number Eyes emoji, mark of finding. This one is Eyes emoji, plural. This is a good listing system, shut up. This is the darling have you seen my keys mark. The mark of finding, traditionally associated with half-orcs and humans. Remember that it's not one species per house, belongs to House Tharashk. The mark of finding lets you find things. Good job. That was a really hard one to guess. It's good at locating people and objects, which means that members of this house make for amazing detectives. They literally have a Finder's Guild, which spends its time that's right, finding things and people and treasure. Good job, you're really good at guessing. Number dog emoji, mark of handling. This is the Disney princess mark. The dragon mark of handling, traditionally associated with humans, belongs to House Vedalis. The mark of handling grants you power over animals, specifically to care for, interact with, and control them. Which means that House Vedalis has taken this quaint little power and made a livestock empire. I love Eberron so much. They also use this for, get this, fantasy animal husbandry, and they have made like insane chimeras. Everybody's so creative. Number Band-Aid emoji, mark of healing. the Healbot mark. The mark of healing, traditionally associated with halflings, belongs to House Jarasco and gives the bearer the power of picking mercy.
Am I gonna be mercy?
Because this is Eberron, House Jarasco has taken this selfless, kind gift and with it created the concept of privatized healthcare. Very few that are not part of House Jarasco offer healing at all. I wonder why. And so House Jarasco has created a monopoly out of the most basic of needs and is now profiting from it. I love Eberron so much. Number bed emoji. The mark of hospitality. The guest bedroom mark. The mark of hospitality, traditionally associated with the southern United States and halflings, belongs to House Galanda, and it grants the power of, ill-defined. The spells you get make sense. It's stuff like Unseen Servant, Create Food and Water, and I guess I can see how House Galanda uses this. They have a hostler guild. They basically created the concept of chain hotels. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure they make good money, but like after the abject evil of House Jarasco and healing and the cool application of stuff like the Mark of Handling, this kind of falls flat. Number wrench emoji, Mark of Making. It's this one. Here it is, it's the coolest one. It's the one I pick for my Mary Sue. The DIY mark, the mark of making, is traditionally associated with humans and it belongs to House Karrnath. They originally operated in Cyre, and you know how that ended, and they are responsible for Warforged being a thing. And that's a pretty cool thing to be responsible of, alongside the existential crisis that comes with it, which is a marginally less cool thing to be responsible of. Their mark allows them to create, and the more gifted among them can create magic items, including robots. Build a boy house, it's the best one. Karrnath represent. Number train emoji, Mark of Passage. The walkable city Dragonmark. The Mark of Passage, traditionally associated with humans, belongs to House Orion. This honestly could have been Mark of Hospitality 2.0 and just been boring, but nay. This house is responsible for the lightning rail, basically the train system that keeps Eberron running, and gifted enough bearers of this Dragonmark can literally teleport. These guys are in control of the Couriers Guild. They control the flow of everything throughout the continent. They're extremely powerful. It's one of the coolest ones to me, and a really cool application of the baseline fantasy concept into a modern world. Number little handwriting emoji. I need to stop making lists. Mark of Scribing. The Pocahontas Listen with Your Heart Dragonmark. The Mark of Scribing, traditionally associated with gnomes, belongs to House Civis. And like anything related to gnomes in Eberron, I'm sure they found a way to make this evil. The Mark of Scribing makes you both good at communicating, but also communicating over great distances. Their members are often translators and mediators, but they also deal with the written word, and they are really good at being notary publics. I am not kidding. There is a Dragonmark for notary publics, and it's this one. How helpful, right? Sure, yeah. Give Eberron gnomes all of your information. I bet that would go great. Number shield emoji, Mark of Sentinel. The tanking mark. And yes, Mark of Sentinel and not Mark of the Sentinel or Mark of Protecting to upset me. Traditionally associated with humans and belongs to House Deneth? Belongs to House Denise. And it's about protecting. They originate from Karrnath and their headquarters are still there, but they operate everywhere. And their specialty is bodyguards. I really like that they gave this one, the objectively nice one, to Karrnath. God knows they needed the optics. And once again, it works well with Eberron's commitment to not make everything black and white. If any Dragonmark needed to be straightforward and actually kind of the good guys, it needed to be the one that comes from spooky necromantic nation. They have enough going on. Number detective emoji, the Mark of Shadow. That one. It looks like snakes. The Edgelord mark, and boy, is it the Edgelord mark. The Dragonmark of Shadow the Hedgehog, traditionally associated with elves, and the only Dragonmark belonging to two houses, House Feywild and House Thrane, is the Sneaky mark. Both with stuff like casting darkness, but also stuff like scrying. So basically, it's the espionage Dragonmark. Weird that this one didn't go to gnomes, but I guess they're too smart to be like, hi, we are the mark of welcome to my twisted mind. Gnomes are too smart for that. The elves would do that though. With these set of skills, you would imagine that these two houses are full of like spies and infiltrators and assassins, and you would be right. But funnily enough, they are also the ones going into entertainment. Probably because if you hire people to like dance and sing at a party, you're probably someone worth gathering intel from. House Feywild is more into the arts than House Thrane though. Thrane is way more committed to the Shadow the Hedgehog bit. The fact that this mark belongs to two houses kind of shows why the houses act awful. One wrong move, one schism within a house, and here's another player that basically does exactly what you do that is competing with you now. Unfortunately, and as much as it pains you and me, there's a finite amount of Assassin's Guild that the world needs. Number lightning bolt emoji, Mark of the Storm. The Wind Waker one. The Mark of the Storm, traditionally associated with half-elves, once again, belongs to House Lorandar. And once again, great example of quaint little power being used for its most cynical purpose. The Mark of the Storm allows you to control weather, which House Lorandar has used to basically gain the monopoly over all transportation over sky and sea. Remember, Eberron has airships because Eberron is cool. But not only that, weather is also pretty important for crops, which also means that they have taken over farming completely. I bet that Karrnath over there would love for it to stop storming and snowing every 5 minutes. Guess they'll have to pay House Lorander a visit and actually pay them. See why Dragonmark houses basically compete with nations in terms of power? Number luck emoji. Mark of Warding. The Mark of, definitely not Mark of Sentinel. The Mark of Warding, traditionally associated with dwarves. Finally, I thought we had forgotten about them. How come dwarves get 1? Stop oppressing my short kings. Anyway, it belongs to House Kondarak. Gongaga. The Mark of Warding would be distinct from the Mark of Sentinel if it didn't protect people, and yet it does. I don't know why. Rewrite it, change this. And I guess they did, since in Forge of the Artificer, this whole protecting people is basically dropped. The actual identity of the Mark is safeguarding, protecting things and places from harm and from incursion, as in thieves. Remember how I went on and on about dwarves being insanely rich in Eberron? They are bankers. This is how they did it. You need something not stolen? House Gongaga will do that for you. For a price. And that's it. That's that. There's a 13th one, but that one doesn't exist anymore. It's not even a player option in Forge of the Artificer. This is not out of laziness or whatever. The house literally died, and the Dragonmark died alongside with it. Only one person has it, and that person is also dead. Well, undead. And even then, that mark doesn't work anymore. And you'll have a hard time making more Dragonmark babies when you're a lich. Except there is one more Dragonmark. If being a Mary Sue is not enough for you, if you want to be a Marty Stew of darkness and pain, I have just a Dragonmark for you. Did you not wonder why one of them was red? It's because of Shadow the Hedgehog collars. Number little devil smiling emoji. The Aberrant Mark. So, if 2 Dragonmark people with 2 different Dragonmarks love each other very much, the stork brings them an abomination. That's right. The eugenics go deeper than you thought. Mixing Dragonmark lineages produces an aberrant Dragonmark. These can also appear completely at random, and they look like that. Now that is cyber sigilism. Like, look at those cat scratches of evil. And it's black and red too? Sick. Aberrant marks were a massive problem before because, oh God, I thought I wouldn't get into it. Fine, I'm gonna do it really quick. There was another war, yes, another war, not the last war. This one happened before. It was called the War of the Mark, and it is 10 times less interesting than the last war, so I am gonna speed through it. Very evil, very bad, very powerful power couple, with both of them having aberrant marks, destroyed Sharn, and the houses rose up to defeat them. And they did so. No. The houses also decided to commit a little bit of a cleansing on anyone that had an aberrant Dragonmark. Trust me, it is not more interesting than that. There is one interesting part though. Breyland thought that it would be a good idea to gather as many people with aberrant Dragonmarks as possible and basically send them on Black Ops missions. Yes, really. And Black Ops missions with basically no chance of survival. What is this? Some kind of suicide squad? The survivors of that, which somehow did survive, created the newest of the houses, House Karrnath, the house that specializes on aberrant Dragonmarks. I feel like I've said aberrant, and I don't know which one is correct. But I'm sure that you will boost my engagement by telling me in the comments. House Karrnath is not really a house, it's basically just organized crime, which I mean, I guess it is a house. So, now you know them. How does this work in 5e? Well, remember how there were not that many changes in species in Forge of the Artificer compared to Rising from the Last War? There are many changes here. In Rising from the Last War, the Dragonmark system was, awful. It was really bad. Basically, you would pick your species and then a subspecies with that mark. So you couldn't be a drow with a mark or a forest gnome with a mark. No, you needed to be a dragon-marked gnome. The bloat that this added to the species section was insane. I hated it so much. It almost made me resent Dragonmarks, which is not fair because I love them. In 2024 though, they did something genius. They take the fact that in 2024, you select a feat when you choose your background at level 0 and give you backgrounds for each of the marks and feats that go alongside with them. It's already 1,000 times better. But they also take into account that people in Eberron can manifest a Dragonmark later in life. So you can take those Dragonmark feats whenever. Also, you could, for example, say that you're a sailor and take the sailor background and take the Dragonmark feat because maybe you don't belong to a house, or maybe you're part of the Mark of the Storm house and you're a sailor. Even more changes. Each Dragonmark feat comes with its own Pokemon evolution. Marks evolve the more you use them, so from lesser mark to greater mark to Sybaris mark. This is a thing in lore, by the way. They didn't come up with this. They just actually made it mechanical, which is so cool. And those are feats that you can take if you want to like invest more into your Dragonmark. People have been asking for this for ages. This is how 3.5 did it. And this decouples species from Dragonmarks, which means you can pick any species and any Dragonmark. Don't let anyone tell you that this is not lore accurate, by the way. This has been a thing from the beginning. What if one of your parents left their house and married for love? What if it just manifested on you randomly, which does happen? As I said, it is within lore that the same Dragonmark can manifest in 2 different species. Look at House Tharashk. The Mark of Finding proves that. It is humans and orcs. Overall, the Forge of the Artificer, without a question, is the best iteration of Dragonmarks so far. I would say of all D&D. But I do have one critique. Act shocked. This has been the case since forever, and I really wish they would change this. While greater and Sybaris Dragonmarks don't all have this problem, lesser Dragonmarks always assume that you're a spellcaster. They give you a spell list, but it's a spell list that you can only cast if you can cast spells. So these are not like tiefling spells that you can cast regardless of your build. You can only cast these if you have the spellcasting or pact magic feature. This means that if you're playing a purely martial class with a Dragonmark, you just miss on half of your lesser Dragonmark. This sucks. It really does. And I know it's an Eberron original, but change it next time. I just hate that this basically makes it so marshals are disincentivized to not pick Dragonmarks, because I love Dragonmarks. But am I really gonna make an Eberron video and talk about species of Eberron and Dragonmarks and ignore the robotic elephant in the room? The thing that Eberron is most known for? I have its newest iteration right here in my hand. So how about we close this trip to Eberron with its most famous feature? Part 5, the Artificer. To me, Eberron is the Artificer. It's one of the most beloved classes in all of D&D, despite not even being a core class. It's another intelligence-based class, which we are in dire need of. Hopefully, the Scion will come in one day. And once Tasha came and went, we never saw the Artificer again in 5e. Until now. We now have the 2024 equivalent of the Artificer thanks to Forge of the Artificer. And I want to close this video thesis by telling you everything that has changed about it, as well as my thoughts. So get ready for some analyzing. First up, covering our bases, all 4 subclasses that have been released for 5th edition for the Artificer are in Forge of the Artificer. It would be weird if they weren't, since it's called that. And we have a brand new subclass, bringing our total of Artificer subclasses in 5th edition to 5. Why did I say it like that? Druids before 2024 had 7 subclasses, so Artificer is behind, but not by a lot. It's also worth noticing that Artificer is on par with other classes when it comes to updated 2024 subclasses. All the core classes got 4 in the PHB, and some get a 5th one in Heroes of Faerun. Oh, thanks to the 5th one in Forge of the Artificer, Artificer right now has more subclasses than Barbarian, Druid, Warlock, and Monk. Isn't that wild? I thought I would never say that. Also, as I said, after Rising from the Last War, we got another Artificer subclass in Tasha, this book, and Tasha came out a year to the day after Rising from the Last War, so maybe in a year we'll get a 6th Artificer subclass. Wizards, do not put my Lego building children through the same drought you put them through in the beginning of 5e. Not again. Okay, changes first. What has stayed the same? Same weapons, armor, hit dice, same tools, same spell progression, super basics are the same. On to changes. How is the new Artificer actually different? Magical Tinkering, which previously had you make a thing with super situational effects, but like many of them, has changed. Now you make a common object, not a magic item, but a common object. You can make oil, parchment, rope, a torch. It's very Inspector Gadget. Did Americans watch Inspector Gadget? It's very MacGyver. There you go, I found it. I know how to appeal to my audience. Yeehaw, I like this change. Not only was the previous one super situational, like there were many effects, so you could probably find one thing, like one time a campaign to do it, but I really like how this new one pushes it to more of a maker direction and gives it more versatility. Although you can make a pull, does strain verisimilitude just a baby bit? You're a magic user, so a wizard did it. Infusions are now called magic item plans, like blueprints. I like that flavor better. Infusions felt weirdly alcoholic now that we changed. Oh, hi. Did you see the bug? Oh, it's a bee. She came to say hi. But honestly, it's a change in name only. They work basically the same. The biggest change, and this one feels small, but it's actually pretty big, is that instead of infusing existing items, you make them. I told you they were going for the maker angle. Instead of turning an existing pair of boots magical, you make a magical pair of boots. Listen to those words carefully. This is the sort of thing that previously was just annoying, like you had to wait for your DM to take you to Fantasy Nordstrom to get the boots so you can actually use the infusions. It sucked. Now you just make the magic boots. Or the magic hat. branding. It also has updated wording to stop Reddit fights. There was like debates over if you make a sword, can you use that as your spellcasting focus? It now says you can. The war is over. Okay, all of this was small potatoes compared to what's coming now. Big changes. Artificers lose the right tool for the job, which was a ribbon ability if I've ever seen one, and instead you get Magic Item Tinker, which is awesome. You can use your spell slots to recharge an item that uses charges. Awesome, really cool ability. I can't believe that I haven't thought of that before. And you can change a magic item you've made into another one that you can make. You might already be picking up what this update is all about, but the name of the game here is versatility. We'll get to it. Spell storing item can now fit spells of level 3 instead of just level 1 or 2. This bad boy can fit so many spells in it. Advanced Artifice is a combo of all abilities, so it's not like they lost an ability, they just comboed it. You can attune to more items, which you could do before, but also you get a Flash of Genius extra after every short rest. Good. Flash of Genius is bardic inspiration for kids that played with Legos. This replaces an ability that allowed you to wear magic items that were not for you racially. And now that all magic items have gone through sensibility training and they're not racially motivated anymore, something had to change, so this is it. Good change. And in the grand tradition of 2024 classes, you get a nuke at level 20. All classes get this, except for Rangers. Oh boy. It's so easy to make fun of them, I don't know. You can destroy magic items you've made to stop you from dying, like if you're about to die, except you could do this before, but now it's like 20 times stronger, and that's not an exaggeration, it is literally 20 times stronger. Before, you destroyed one magic item and you regained 1 hit point, now you regain 20. However, nerf. Big nerf too. You don't get the insane number of +1s depending on how many infusions you had active. This was wild. This was extremely strong. I'm not surprised this changed. It was a little bit insane. It was a lot bit insane. To replace this, you become a monk or a bard. You get all of your Flash of Geniuses, whatever, plurals all make sense anyway. You get all of them on a short rest, and that's all the changes. To the main class, what about subclasses? Yes, of course, subclasses have changed. I'm not gonna get into that. Just kidding, I am. I said comprehensive. Artificer subclasses. Oh my god, not another numbered list. Oh, I can't do it. I give up. 500k special, 100th video. Do it for the channel. Do it for the channel, human. Do it for the channel. Okay. What comes after emojis? Number, base, and wrench. Yes, we're doing wrenches for numbers. It's thematic. Leave me alone. You come to this channel for inventiveness and whimsy. This is it. Number, base, and wrench. Alchemist. See, basin, because liquid. Okay, I covered the Alchemist in an Artificer dedicated video. You can watch it if you want. But in case you don't remember or you haven't seen what I said there, you haven't seen it? That's rude, go see it. You're gonna hurt my feelings. The Alchemist is the potion maker, and it's my favorite in terms of flavor, and my least favorite mechanically. It was the weakest one, by a mile. Biggest thing about them is that they revolve around their experimental elixirs. You make potions. The Alchemist potions felt consistently underpowered, and what's worse, they didn't scale with levels. So, how is the Alchemist now? Well, they changed experimental elixirs, and now they scale with levels. To be loved is to be seen. You also make way more, like a lot more. It used to be 2 at level 6 and 3 at level 15. Yes, really, it was bad. It's 3 at level 5, 4 at level 9, and 5 at level 15. 1,000 times better. They did get, however, a baby bit of a nerf. Before, every time anyone drank your potion, they would get a tiny bit of healing. They don't do so anymore. It makes sense since the actual healing potion that you can actually make with this same feature has been buffed. In general, the Alchemist has de-emphasized its healing. Their capstone, which is 1,000 times better in my opinion, de-emphasizes this even more. You deal extra damage every time you deal a specific damage type, and the healing options are replaced with Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron. Overall, lost their healing, but at the same time, they gain more healing. Before, it used to be a 2d4 plus your intelligence. It's now a 2d8 plus your intelligence. And that 2d8 scales up in level, so it does even more healing. So in a weird way, they have gained healing, they have lost healing, and they have gained damage. It's better. Number, Armorer's Wrench. Armor. There's an Armorer's Wrench, apparently. Maybe this was a good idea after all. Armor to me is the best Artificer subclass, and I DM one in a campaign for like a year and a half, so I'm pretty familiar with D&D's Iron Man. What makes this subclass so strong is that it's kind of like the Hexblade or the Sword Bard, but not really. There's another one that is exactly that though. You hit with intelligence, you're like a master of working out at the library. This makes it way less mad, multiple ability dependent, and this is the same with the new armor. God bless, they haven't changed this. There's some small changes here and there. You craft armor doubly as fast as other Artificers. This is a through line for all subclasses. They all have a thing that they're really good at crafting. Previously, you used to be able to give an infusion to different parts of the armor, which was really good and really versatile, but boy, was it also a lot to keep in mind. This has been replaced with extra infusions for armors and a flat +1 to all of your armor attacks, which are very important, and this also makes your armor attacks way better at keeping up with your friends, which is very important because they're really good. Before, they could easily get outclassed by like normal magic weapons. The big change though is the armor options. Armor is a mode subclass. I've talked about that in my previous video about warlocks. To select a mode, you select a specific type of armor, and depending on what armor you're wearing, you get different abilities. I literally just did a warlock all about this. It's the video previous to this one. In the older version of the armor, you got 2, and guess what? In the newest one, you get 3. This is what I meant by species get not that many changes, but all the other player options do. 3 modes, 3 different armors. Is this a thing only I'm excited about? Maybe, but I'm really excited about it. The third mode is called Dreadnought. Nice Warforged reference. If you know, you know, but it's a Warforged reference. But the 2 older options have also changed. Let's look at them. Guardian was the tanking mode, and it taunted enemies with every hit, which was amazing. It still does. Infiltrator is the badly named one, because you would not expect this one to be the DPS or DPR option, and yet it is. It deals a ton of damage, and it can deal at range. Insane. Dreadnought, the new one, is the crowd control one. You get reach, you get 1d10 of force damage, which yes, it's not 2d6 of lightning damage, but 1, force damage is better, and 2, reach kinda gives you range in a way. Also, it's crowd control, not DPS. Makes sense that it wouldn't hit as hard. You also get extra reach when you grow. That's right, just like Goliath, you can become size large with this. And when you enter the big and tall section, you also hit from further away. It's really good. You so rarely get to see crowd control abilities in D&D, especially for marshals. I'm so happy with this. Dreadnought looks really good. The capstone makes all the modes better, but also less distinct. I don't love it. Dreadnought basically outclasses Infiltrator in damage, but Infiltrator gets more utility, and Guardian gets its own crowd control. Do you see what I mean by them becoming less distinct? Once again, better than the last capstone, but I would like to keep the modes as separate as possible because this is the point of this subclass and like modal subclasses in general. If I may throw my hat in the ring, why not an ability to change modes on the fly? That would be cool, and it would still keep them separate, but give you more versatility and more ways of like using a ton of different abilities in the same combat. Like, wouldn't that be fun? No? Okay. Number Flare Not Wrenched. Artillerist. Flare Not sounds like something you shoot. Listen, they can't all be winners. I would argue none of them were. Let's see how this section goes without Torbjorn appearing on screen. Count now. This is it. This is the gun option. This is the FPS Kids version of D&D. If you want a D&D but gun, this is it. Use this one. Right off the bat, you get martial ranged weapons. You didn't before. I knew this. I had realized that you didn't before, and I definitely didn't assume that you did and thought you did because it makes so much sense that you did. Anyway, the crux of this class is either creating a gun or a turret. As in, you either carry it like a gun or it walks alongside you like the little robot chickens from Disneyland. It says it. It says it right on the class. It says it right there that it's exactly like the robot chickens from Star Wars. The book is not out there, so you can't tell me I'm wrong. The options are the same as before and as insane as before. 2d8 damage crowd control gun. What? And then a healing turret that grants HP each turn, and Russian guy on YouTube. There's like 7 of those guys. Where do they keep making them? Stop it. Anyway, nitpick time. I don't like that they took off that line that said that to roll any saves for your robot chicken, it's just a straight D20. Am I stupid? Are you meant to assume that? I mean, I'm assuming it's that because that's how it was before, but why is that line not there? Weird. Maybe I'm dumb and everyone knows this about robot chickens in D&D. This is not even all of it. This is mostly just for your gun or turret. You can do more stuff than that. You can turn magic wands into guns. I mean, it's great. It's great. Sometimes you don't have anything to say. Sometimes it's just good, and that's it. Oh, also, the gun is your spellcasting focus, by the way. You cast gun. Other than that, this bad boy has not changed much. Your robot chicken gun gets stronger. You can blow it up for damage, and that damage has been buffed because 3d8 force wasn't enough. And a capstone, everyone around your turret gets half cover, and you can make 2 of your turrets now. Artillerist, to me, is the subclass that has changed the least between Rising from the Last War and Forge of the Artificer, but it was already considered an amazing blaster, so start blasting. Number Alligator Wrench. Battlesmith. It's alligator because animal. Let's move on. It's the Ranger subclass. It's a pet class. I'm a bad person because I love these.
If you look like this, call me.
The Battlesmith is weird because it's a pet class, but it's also very much a martial combatant. Like, probably the most martial out of all the Artificers. They get to make weapons faster, they get martial melee weapons, and most importantly, much like the smart version of the Hexblade, they hit with intelligence.
I told you there was a second one coming. It's kind of like the armor, but more damage and weapon-centric. But as I said, the subclass just doesn't want you to only hit with your weapon, nay. It wants you to do that with your robo-pet by your side. And that robo-pet is the meat of the subclass, so let's take a look. You get to pick what your Steel Defender looks like, so you can either make it stand on 2 legs, like the Star Wars chicken robot, just to pick an example, pick that example, or 4 legs. So exactly like this. This is the only option for that one. It's either robot chicken from Star Wars or this. It's what the book says, I swear. You can't prove me wrong until December 9th. The changes in the subclass mostly concentrate on the Steel Defender, that is your robot chicken dog. It scales better with levels, it hits harder, it has also gained survivability, and it has become more versatile in combat. Oh, and you can also choose to give it your extra attack if it's positioned better than you. Overall, what to me makes the Battlesmith a good pet class is not only that the pet hits hard, it does, but that you yourself are not totally useless without your pet thanks to the focus on arcane weapons and on hitting really hard martially. You can also bring back your Steel Defender pretty easily and heal it back up to full at the use of no resources, which makes it so that you're not done having a subclass if that thing dies, and you're never torn apart too long from your emotional support chicken robot. Okay, so those are all the changes, but since I have Forge of the Artificer, I can talk to you about the newest one, and it's a weird one. Number Allen Wrench, the Cartographer. My notes say, Allen Wrench because you get lost at IKEA, and this one is about not getting lost. So that's a level of humor we're operating at this stage of the video. Okay, so when I saw that there was a new Artificer subclass, I thought we would get another stab at the Archivist, which has remained in like Unearthed Arcana limbo for ages. Archivist was high concept, and I love high concept. My work on this channel certainly proves that. But no, instead we got another high concept idea. Nami from One Piece. I mean, I like that better from the bat, so let's see what they cooked. This might have been obvious just by the name, if you're smarter than me, but this is a mobility subclass, which is a thing that we're seeing pop out more and more in D&D. The new Archfey Warlock is exactly this, and I just talked about this. If you see that video, there's a part that I say foreshadowing about a thing that I can't talk about yet. Now I can. Positioning mattering at all makes D&D about 1,000 times more fun, so I'm all about this. As I said, all Artificer subclasses are good at crafting one specific thing better than the others, and Cartographers are good at crafting spell scrolls, and at making scrolls matter. If you liked scrolls in Baldur's Gate 3, get ready. This is it. This is not only a mobility subclass, by the way, it's also very clearly a support and utility subclass, which is a thing that the Artificer did not have. So good. I love those ones. It is, however, not a healer. It is a support and buff. Spells have some really solid options, and they actually managed to make it thematic, which I thought they would not. Like, it's a hard theme to do. You get stuff like Lightning Bolt, Banishment, Locate Creature, Teleportation Circle. It makes sense. It's very much a Cartographer spell list. However, there is one damaging option, called Lightning. They really set support and buff. It's utility through and through. Okay, so stay with me because I was not joking when I said high concept. Cartographers create a number of atlases. Atli? Avatar the Legend of Aang. They make a bunch of maps. Dora is quaking. 1+ intelligence amount of maps, so basically everyone in the party gets a map. Evan Hansen's mom is quaking.
Does anybody have a map?
While carrying said map, whoever you gave it to as a cartographer gains a number of bonuses. Initially, it's +4 to initiative. Yes, really, if +4 to initiative. And the ability to know exactly where everyone else who is also holding a map is. Controlling boyfriends are quaking. A neat little part of this that I don't think is gonna come up that much at all, but I still think it's neat, is that any map holder can cast a spell on any other map holder, regardless of if they can see them or not. You still need to be in range, but for example, magical darkness, doesn't matter anymore. Later on, these bonuses get even better. The biggest bonus is that if anyone holding a map is about to die, they can destroy that map to gain a number of hit points. And when they do that, they can also teleport 5 feet around any other map holder, basically saving them. It's a really good exit button. Also, it becomes basically impossible for you to lose your way. Kill is quaking.
Don't lose your way.
All these, aside from the no dying and the insane initiative bonus, are a tinsy bit situational for me, but you have to put these all in context of 1, they take no resources, 2, an insane number of people as in all the party gets this, and 3, this requires no attunement. But the meat of the subclass, and when the mobility parts come in, is what you can do with those maps. You can spend half of your speed to teleport 10 feet or 5 feet next to anyone holding one of your maps, as long as those people are within 30 feet of you.
Basically, this is a lot of numbers to say you bamf around the battlefield a whole lot. This might be the most teleporty subclass I've ever seen. So if you spend 10 feet of movement, you literally teleport within 5 feet of another person holding a map. And unless I'm wrong, as you can tell, I'm not at my desk to check, but this doesn't provoke attacks of opportunity, so you really are mobile. You then get another teleport option when you use Flash of Genius. Yes, another one. I really cannot think of a single other subclass that is this mobile. For damage, it all revolves around, of all things, Fairy Fire. If you think about it, it makes sense. Fairy Fire basically puts a glowing outline around an enemy, and you're a cartographer guiding your friends to kill somebody. You can cast Fairy Fire for free a whole bunch of times, and every time you hit someone under Fairy Fire, you deal extra damage. Also, if you were thinking, wow, I'll lose concentration immediately, nope, you literally cannot. You cannot lose concentration on Fairy Fire, so that thing is staying up. As I said, this is very high concept, so let me paint a picture as to how I think the designers want you to play this. You get in with your flat +4 to initiative, you then Fairy Fire immediately, and then the rest of the combat is bamfing next to your melee fighters to deal damage, and then bamfing out to your backline to stay safe. Or if you're going range, you can attack and then bamf out of the way to stay really safe. I'm a massive fan of high mobility and positioning, so this sounds like a dream. Although, like with any utility-centric subclass, damage can very much be an issue here. You're just gonna have to be okay with the fact that you're not gonna measure up when it comes to damage, specifically to other artificers. Look at the artillerist. So your goal in combat as a player should be to be 1, as annoying as possible to the enemies, and 2, as helpful as possible to your friends. Like, remind your friends, hey, if you destroy your map, you don't die. So in conclusion, not the subclass for you if you crave big number, but definitely the subclass for you if you crave feeling useful. Also, how is the whole I only play healers in multiplayer video games going for you? I think, yeah, that's Artificer.
I'm ready to go back home.
Hat? Hat. Hat. Pointy hat?
My non-existent ears are ringing. Did you miss me? You really think I was gonna go through all the trouble of putting my human familiar through all that trouble to not give you something to take to your table for 100% certified Pointy hat free? For the 100th video 500k subscriber special? Guess again. Yes, this video is somehow not done. Last time I did a milestone celebration, I gave you a whole feywild adventure for free. And since that was so DM-centric, I want this one to be all about players. Because there are more players than DMs, and the more people at the table crying about how they want to play Eberron, the more chances their poor DM says yes. Sorry to all DMs out there, if my evil scheme works. There's just a tinsy little bitsy spider of a problem with this. Eberron is not SRD. The SRD lets you sell your own D&D content independently, also publish it independently for people that don't sell it like me. I get why this is like this. It's their own intellectual property. If it was in the SRD, anyone, including other businesses, could turn around and make their own Eberron video game or movie or whatever and not give them a cent for it. Side note, please Eberron video game, please. Baldur's Gate 3 did so well and the Forgotten Realms is way less cool than Eberron, please. So how am I gonna give you all this stuff for 100% Pointy hat free? Well, exactly like that. Eberron was born out of a community effort, a contest with thousands of people putting their dream campaigns into one single page. And in the spirit of that effort, and as a celebration for the insane support that you all have given me, which I still have not internalized, I just don't know how that's happening, I'm casting a very powerful spell. Fan content policy. Wizards of the Coast allows you to publish anything through their fan content policy, even stuff that is not in the SRD. Total carte blanche. If you do use fan content policy to publish something though, you can never ever charge for it. It will always and forever be for the community. And what's more Eberron than that? What's more Pointy hat than that? So now that we found a way to play in this sandbox with the robot children, what am I actually making? Remember 6 months ago, or however long it's been, in this video where the familiar talked about the 5 nations and my interpretation of the themes of Eberron being great loss and, most importantly, rebuilding after experiencing said loss? D&D is first and foremost a game, and I think all games are at their best when they use the inherent characteristics of their medium to convey whatever message or theme they want to convey. I want to show those themes of loss and rebuilding through game mechanics so you really feel them while playing. Hear me out, Cyre relics. What about an entire, basically collection of Cyre-themed player-centric aspects for Eberron? Imagine it being divided in two parts, Grief and Rebirth, Dust and Dreams. Grief, or Dust, could contain stuff like lost magic items and ships made when Cyre lived and thrived to use in your games, all to emphasize what was lost when Cyre itself was lost. Rebirth, or Dreams, if we want to be Kingdom Hearts coded, in contrast, could contain player options that focus on the people that are actually rebuilding, and like literal rebuilding, like bastions, like actually building and moving forward. Imagine an Artificer that is an architect, a brand new subclass to join the existing 5 Artificers. It would be a controller, all about battlefield manipulation, and its niche would be wall spells. Wall of Fire, Wall of Force, Wall Berg. Imagine if it could cast those walls easier with less of a spell slot cost, and like no cost in like specific circumstances, but also imagine if its niche was also bludgeoning damage, force damage, basically siege monster but for a player character. Like it gets extra damage if it deals force or bludgeoning damage because it's a demolition expert, it's an architect, it's good at rebuilding and tearing down. The flavor and the abilities work to convey the theme. And you know how all Artificers have like a ribbon ability that makes them super good at making super specific items faster? What if the architect's equivalent was bastions? It's really good at building those, which, I mean, building buildings is kind of the theme we're going for in Dreams. And for Dust, as I said, Cyre magic items, things that House Karrnath made, reminders of what once was. Ships that Cyre used both in and out of the war that you can use yourself. Cyre was all about magic. What about a magic-focused ship? Unfortunately, I just have to say, this is all just a little bit too much. Filming this video was such a massive undertaking. The poor human familiar is so tired after all that extra planar trouble thing. I think this big of a release would just be impossible, so I hope— Psych! You thought that the 500,000 subs, 100k celebration wouldn't be big, even in the twist? Baby, it's as big as it can possibly be. Listen closely. Everything is free. And I do mean everything. And you know what else is free? Pocket Bard, the sponsor of this video. Check them out on the very first link below. This video is so long and they were so patient with all the waiting that they deserve the love. I thought I would remind you, especially because it's free, just like the entire Cyre and Dreams and Dust folio containing 3 evolving magic items, 1 ship, and 3 crew stations. That sounds like crustaceans. Not that. There was no crustaceans. Sorry. 3 brand new bastions and a whole Artificer subclass, the Architect, is available for all of you for 100% Pointy certified free completely. It's fan content. It's up for you to grab right now. Just click on the link in the description. That's a ton, but we're not done. Before you go on your merry way, real talk time. I hope this video shows how grateful I am right now. We are at 500,000 subscribers, 500,000, and it has taken like 3 years to get here. That's insane. That's not normal. When I started this, nobody expected this success. No one believed in this, not in a mean way, just like that doesn't happen. I was no different. I dared to hope that maybe one day we would reach 100k 5 years down the line, and now 3, we're here. I don't like to talk about myself and break kayfabe because I think it's weird, but I've had it rough. Like, actual rough. Maybe one day we'll do a story time or whatever. I don't know. It was already vulnerable enough to do as much as I've done for this video and show my face that much when I hate showing my face. But success like this was just not in the cards for me. And yet, the amount of support, love, and outstanding just showing up you guys do, it floors me every single time. Every single time I shout out another creator, they come back to tell me that you guys were there, like on their channels supporting them. The few times I release anything, like not for free, I have to like stare at a wall when I see that you guys actually support me. And faced with all of this, I want to do the right thing as much as I can. This year, we did my own charity drive that was so hard to do, and we raised well past 20k, like dollars. That's insane money. But the bread and butter of this channel will always be 100% Pointy Hat free because I love this game and I want you guys to play with. Like, I want you guys to get to enjoy it with me. And for this time, I wanted nothing more than to demonstrate just how grateful I am by going as above and as beyond as I could with like script writing, with video filming, with editing, thanks to my best friend and editor who makes this whole thing actually work. We have worked together since the beginning of this channel and I couldn't do it without you. She's editing this right now. So the more I babble and I thank her, the more work she has to do. So let's keep it going to make her suffer. So, just like I feel your support, I hope you feel how grateful I am right now. We have one last video before the end of the year, and then 2026 is going to be a very, very important year. The things that are in motion for the next year terrify me and excite me in equal parts. I want to bring you in, I want to tell you everything, but I can't right now. But you know what I can do? In the spirit of D&D, in the spirit of numbers and numbered lists, and in the spirit of this 100th video, how about I start the process of letting you know with a puzzle. See you in 2 weeks for the last video of the year. And really, from the bottom of my cold dead hat, thank you.